Hello and welcome. My name is Florencia Colella. I am a farm business educator with Michigan State University Extension. In this video, we will learn how to enter a few transactions on PCMARS. This project is funded by the United States Department of Agriculture and the North Central Risk Management Education Center. Okay, so here is the PCMARS homepage. It is like a blank canvas. For the purposes of this video, we are going to assume that your PCMARS is already set up. If you need help setting up your books on PCMARS, ask your local MSU Farm Business Management Extension educator for resources to do that. And also consider joining the MSU TELFARM program that provides year-round support. Okay, our first sample entry is paying a bill. To do this, we will go to the right check icon, the first one here, and it will open a check-like screen. There are several entries into this screen. The Enter or Tab keys will take us through them. First, I'll select the bank account at the top, and then the check number. PCMARS will automatically enter the next consecutive number from the last one, but you can override that and enter one of your own. Automatic withdrawals can be entered as AW, for example, or left blank. On Pay to the order of, we will select one of our vendors from the drop-down list. You can also start entering the first few letters of the vendor name to bring it up, or just write down the name of the vendor if it isn't already on your list. The address will autofill if you had entered it when you set up the vendor. If you hadn't, then you can add that information at this time. Okay, now we need to enter the date of the transaction, which will automatically be set to the date on your computer. If the date of the check is different, you can override it, and you can also click on the drop-down box to bring up a monthly calendar. By the way, PCMARS has the option of writing the check right from this screen by printing on the print button to the right or just pressing F9. Finally, we'll enter the amount, and if we want any additional information printed on the check, we'll write a memo. Now we'll focus on the details section. Here we'll enter the account code, enterprise, amount per item, description, profit center, and units or weight if needed. An example would be if you were buying seed corn. The code would be 409 for corn seed, and the enterprise would be CRN for corn. You can put additional information as to the brand of seed corn under your description, and then under units, how many bags you purchased. If you also purchased seed beans at the same time, you would continue on to a next line when you hit your Enter or Tab key, or you can click the Insert Row button to the right. You can continue splitting this check to as many entries as you want to come up with a total amount of the check. And that's it. Just click Save or press F10 and you're done. Our next sample entry is paying for a piece of equipment. For this, PCMARS has what they call wizards. These wizards prompt users for all the extra information needed for entering capital purchases and reduce the chances for errors. To use the capital purchase wizard, I'll go to the Transactions option, then Special Transactions and Capital Purchase Wizard. Then I'll get this dialog box asking whether the purchase was made only by cash using a check, by financing using a loan, or by a combination of both cash and loan financing. So I'll pick the first option. And this other window will appear. So I'll select the date of the transaction, then say no to the question of whether there were any assets traded. Then I'll select the bank account, enter the check number and the amount. I'll select the vendor, the address should populate, and I'll enter a short memo to go on the check. Then at the bottom, I'll select the machinery and equipment account code. I'll use a general enterprise in this case. I'll enter the dollar amount and description and click on Make Check or press F10. PCMARS will enter the wizard information into a check screen that I have to save now. I can print it also from here. And that's how you enter capital purchases on PCMARS. Our next sample transaction is paying for a piece of equipment with a loan, a down payment, and a trade-in. So in this screen, we'll select the third option. And in this one, we'll enter the date, yes to the question of whether there was a trade-in, personal property for the type of asset traded in, 1 for the number of items traded in, no to the question of whether an old loan was rolled into the new one. Then we'll select the bank account from the drop-down list, enter the check number, the cash down payment amount. Then we select the name of the creditor from the drop-down menu, and we pick a liability account code. In this case, I'll select 256 equipment loan. Then I'll enter the amount for the loan, and I'll move on to the dealer or vendor information. I'll pick my vendor from the drop-down list, in this case New Holland, and the address will autofill. Then I'll enter a memo, and I'll go to the bottom section to enter some information about the new tractor I bought. An account number, machinery and equipment in this case. I'll enter general for the enterprise because I use this tractor for everything in this farm, an amount, and a description. In the next section, the yellow part, I'll enter some information about the tractor I traded in. I'll pick machinery and equipment again for the code, general for the enterprise, $30,000 because that's the amount that they took my old tractor for, and a description. Then I'll go ahead and click Make Check or press the F10 key. And PCMARS will show me the check screen that I can print if I want, and then I'll just save it and I'm done. Our next sample transaction is recording a loan coming in. So this time, from the main screen, we will click on the second icon in this section here, the yellow one. This is for entering deposits. And then we'll use a similar process to enter a deposit slip. We'll first select the bank account, the deposit number, which will automatically be the next consecutive number, but we can change it if we want into any number or AD for automatic deposits, for example. Or we could also leave it blank if we wanted. Then we'll enter the date, and that again will automatically be set to the date on the computer, but we can change it if we want to. And finally, we'll enter the amount and a memo. In the details section below, I'll pick a vendor from the vendor menu. And here, note that my liability vendors, which are the financing organizations that I do business with, have a star L next to their name. In this case, my lender is C. Wilson Land, as this loan is for a land purchase. You may notice that some vendors have a star A next to them. These are asset vendors. These are people that I do business with where I lend them money. Sometimes this is the case with employees, or I may have a land contract. So these go with asset accounts, and that's why they have that star A in the name. Star L accounts or star L vendors are liability vendors. They are people that I owe money to. Okay, but once I've picked my liability vendor, I'll pick an account code. In this case, I'll pick a liability account called Land Loan. Then I'll add an enterprise, the amount, a description, and I'm ready to click Save or press F10. And that's how you enter deposits, specifically in this case, loan deposits. Our next sample entry is recording family living expenses. To do this, we'll go to the Write Check feature. We'll enter the bank account we used to pay for the expense, a check number or a code to help us know how we made the payment. In this case, we write debit because this was a refund. Then we enter the vendor, date, and amount. The address should have populated automatically, but it seems we don't have it on file, which is fine because we aren't really sending a check anyway. And we can enter a memo if we want. At the bottom, I'll enter an account code, in this case, family living, an enterprise, which we'll just leave as general, and the amount. By the way, if we just click on the amount title of this column, PC Mars will copy the number from the top on here so we don't have to enter it again. In this case, it shows as a negative number because we are in theory writing a check, but we are recording money coming in, so we have to enter it as a negative number to keep things straight. Alternatively, we could have used the deposit screen, and in that case, we would have entered it as a positive number. Either way works. So we're now ready to save or press F10, and we are done entering this family living expense. Okay, our next sample transaction is a farm purchase with a farm credit card. In the QuickBooks chapter, we discussed that QuickBooks has the ability to synchronize with your bank account, automatically importing everything. You can set this up by clicking on the Set up Bank Feed for an Account option in the Banking Bank Feeds menu on QuickBooks. PC Mars does not have that feature. But it does have an Excel import feature that will enable you to upload to the program any spreadsheet statements that you get from your creditors' online portals. To be fair, QuickBooks has an import feature too, so it has both an instant sync and an import feature, whereas PC Mars has only an import feature. So that's a point for QuickBooks. But anyway, we'll now show you how to enter farm credit card transactions on PC Mars the old school way. For that, you go to the Credit Transaction option, the fourth one from this section at the top. This screen will appear, which is similar to the check entry screen, except that the money is coming from a loan vendor rather than a bank. Loan vendors can be any revolving credit providers, such as credit cards. So I'll select my creditor at the top. Then I'll pick a liability code in this case, and in most cases, these types of transactions will be short-term loans. I'll also note that this is an expense. If it was income, for example, a refund, I could choose that. Then I'll just leave the number PC Mars assigns to the transaction automatically. I'll pick my vendor, date, and amount, and enter a memo. At the bottom, I'll pick my transaction code or account, in this case farm, fuel, and oil. And the nice thing here is that I can set up that every purchase from Avery Oil goes to that account. So PC Mars actually categorized this transaction automatically as I was entering it. Then I enter general for the enterprise, as this will be used across the farm, the amount, which PC Mars brings from the top if I click on the column title where it says amount, and a description. Once I've done this, I can click on the Save button or press F10. However, that's not the end for this transaction. I still need to enter the credit card bill payment when I get the statement at the end of the month. For that, I will use the check feature. And that's like any other checking expense. Pick a bank account, number, vendor, or in this case, my creditor, the date, amount, and memo. At the bottom, pick an account code, which in this case, PC Mars can again be configured to know that every check I enter for this vendor is a short-term loan payment. An enterprise, amount, and description, and save. Our next sample transaction is a farm loan payment. We're going to enter this as a check. So first option from this block here, or I also have the option to go to transactions at the top and then checks or expense. And then as always, I'll pick a bank account, check number, the name of my creditor, the address if it doesn't auto-populate, the date, amount, and a short memo if needed. And then at the bottom, I'll enter two lines, one for the principal and one for the interest. I'm getting this information from the bank statement. So for the principal, the account is a liability account called land loan, and I am assigning that to the general farm enterprise with $12,561.47 out of the $19,382.83 corresponding to principal, and $6,821.36 are interest. So I pick the interest expense account, assign this to the general farm enterprise, and that's it. I can save or press F10, and that's how you enter loan payments. Our next sample transaction is recording crop sales. We do this by going to the Enter Deposits screen, which is our second option from this block. Or we can also access it by going to the Transactions, Deposit, or Income option from the top menu bar. As usual, we enter the account number that the deposit went into, a deposit number, or we just leave the one PC Mars assigns by default, a date, the amount, and a memo. At the bottom section, I entered the vendor name, that is the name of the person or organization I sold my crop to, the account code, in this case, corn sales old, and I'm using this nomenclature to differentiate this year's corn sales from previous year's corn sales. Then I enter the corn enterprise code, the amount, a description, and very importantly, the number of bushels of corn this transaction corresponds to. Once I've entered this information, I'm ready to save or press F10. All right, our next sample transaction is moving money from savings into checking accounts. For this, we're going to go to the Transactions menu item at the top and we'll choose the Bank Account Transfers option. There isn't the option to open this screen from this section here. Many farmers just use either the Write Check feature or the Deposit Entry feature to enter bank transfers. While that will turn out just fine in the accounting, it is not the recommended method. The bank account transfer screen lets you pick a from account and a to account, and automatically brings up the balances, which can be a useful feature. Then it's just entering a number or leaving the one assigned by default, a date, the amount, and actually, when you use this screen, the memo is entered automatically as bank account transfer, which is nice. Then just save or press F10. Okay, now I just wanted to show you this section here. The little glasses will bring up a list of all the transactions entered, which you can sort by date, vendor, code, etc., and then make changes to a transaction if you need to. The red check mark brings up the reconciliation screen. And this section here has a list of all accounts, a list of all the vendors, a list of all bank accounts, a list of your enterprises, and a list of your employees. I'm not going to show you each of these screens today, but just know that they are there, and this way you can go and add or make changes to your accounts, vendors, banks, enterprises, or employees if you need to. You can also access these screens by going to the Setup menu option at the top. Okay, so that brings us to the end of this video, in which we learned how to enter a bill payment, an equipment purchase with cash, an equipment purchase with a loan, a down payment, and a trade-in, a loan deposit, family living expenses, a credit card farm purchase, a loan payment, crop sales, and transfers between bank accounts on PC Mars.